Thank you, Mr Acting President. Surprising, not too many regional Labor members jumping to their feet to support this member on Thursday during private members. You want to hear from me? Great. Well, maybe you'll give me an extension of time then, the Honourable Matthew Swinburne. Mr Acting President, I was away on urgent parliamentary business yesterday, doing something that it appears every minister of the State Cabinet can't do, which is visit Moora in my electorate. And I was there with the Deputy Prime Minister, touring what looks like to be an amazing expansion of the Moora Residential College funded by the federal Liberal National Government. Now, it's interesting, my office called me and said, we've got this motion has been given notice of. And I must say I was really involved in a motor vehicle accident, Mr Acting President. I couldn't think that there would be anyone in the Labor Party who could, without smiling, bring a motion of this calibre to the chamber today. I didn't think there could be one. But anyway, the Honourable Sally Talbot seemed to have got through her contribution without too much smiling, although her colleagues, I'm not quite sure, will be able to follow with the same level of discipline. Now, it's interesting that the Labor Party have brought this motion today. And it's interesting they brought it on a week when the Minister for Regional Development is paired all week on urgent parliamentary business. So we don't have a contribution to be made by the Minister for Regional Development, but we can rely upon her able parliamentary secretary. And I really do hope the Honourable Darren West gets pre-selected in the upcoming reshuffle of the Labor upper house, because he is our greatest gift on this side of the chamber. Obviously, this motion is very misguided. Very misguided indeed. And perhaps it's because the member comes from the South West region. Now, I must say I'm not a member for the South West region, but there are a number of Labor seats, target seats, transitioning seats in the South West region. And so perhaps the government's plans to deliver for the South West, you can still feel a faint pulse of regional development pumping through the veins of the South West. Perhaps you can still feel that pulse, Mr Acting President, in the mining and pastoral region, where they've got a few Labor seats left that they're trying to sandbag. But certainly in the agricultural region, there is no pulse, and their regional development agenda is indeed on life support. Mr Acting President, the Honourable Sally Talbot challenged members to access the Labor plans. And she said, if you can't, let her know and she will only be happy to assist. Now, obviously, we can find a Labor plan for Albany, a Labor plan for Bunbury, a Labor plan for Collie, a Labor plan for Peel, Pilbara, Goldfields and Geraldton. I can't find a Labor plan for Central Wheatbelt. I can't find a Labor plan for Roe. I can't find a Labor plan for Moore. So perhaps the Honourable Sally Talbot can assist me in tabling at a later stage of today's sitting the Labor plans for those electorates. Because as far as I'm aware, there aren't one. There was never one. And in fact, the only focus of the Labor Party in my electorate at the last election was Geraldton, because they thought they could win it. And they actually came very close to winning it. But their plan wasn't good enough. Where was their plan, Mr Acting President, for Moora, for Katanning, for Northam, for Cunderdin, or even at a more local level? It was missing. Now, this motion's been carefully crafted by the mover to reflect on delivering its plans at the election. Now, the problem that I have, I represent an electorate from Kalbarri to Esperance, and they only had a plan for Geraldton. So obviously, delivering its plans for the rest of my electorate is easy because there wasn't one. They've already achieved their plan on day one of forming the McGowan Labor government. All their election commitments are delivered because there weren't any election commitments. Now, where was their plan for Geraldton that identified the closure of the Geraldton Sobering Up Centre? Where in their plan for Moore did they identify that they were going to close the Moora Residential College, or camp schools, or agricultural college trust funds? Where was that identified in their plans? What about when they told voters they were going to keep utility prices at CPI? Well, they didn't deliver on that plan. They hiked them up. Maybe they'll deliver them this year in their pre-election budget, where they roll out their sweeteners and perhaps deliver their what they intended to deliver at the last election in the year before the election. Mr Acting President, the biggest lie that WA Labor took to the last election was this statement: we will keep royalties for regions and we will make it better. That's what they said, especially the Honourable Darren West. He's a prolific social media user, although it's now been restricted to Facebook. He's been banned from Twitter, but he still banned. Oh, there could be some troll accounts, but I'm not too sure. We haven't pinned him down on that yet. Now remember this. Remember this. Mark McGowan's fresh ideas for Western Australia. If people need a copy, I can always table it. Fresh ideas. 200 fresh ideas. Fresh idea 157. Support and maintain royalties for regions with a focus on jobs. Well, that fresh idea has not been achieved. Has not been achieved. And I read an article just before standing, Mr Acting President, that I believe the unemployment rate in Western Australia has risen from 5.4 to 5.8% on figures released today. So much for this economic diversification and plan for jobs and building the economy. Unemployment's rising in Western Australia. Now, Mr Acting President, I want to draw members' attention and spend a little bit of time on this issue, and particularly the assertion that was made by the Honourable Sally Talbot that the Honourable Alana McTiernan, as Minister for Regional Development, despite the fact that she represents the metropolitan area, is the best regional development minister this state's ever had. Now, Mr Acting President, in the 2018-19 annual report of the West Australian Regional Development Trust, it outlines quite clearly that in that financial year, 2018-19, the Minister for Regional Development handed back to the consolidated account $635.9 million of royalties for regions funding. $635 million. And at the same time, you have the Honourable Darren West running around saying, we've got this financial crisis, we can't afford $7.5 million for the Mora Residential College, you're not important enough. Then you have the Honourable Sally Talbot stand up and said, our greatest achievement is $7.5 million to Collie Senior High School. Well, where was Darren West, the Honourable Darren West and the Honourable Laurie Graham when Mora needed them? When they needed their $7.5 million? Where were they when the Geraldton Sobering Up Centre was closed by the Minister for Mental Health? Very proud achievement of this Labor government. They're the first government in Australian history post the Royal Commission into Aboriginal deaths in custody to close a Sobering Up Centre.
Provide money to some kind of newsletter.
A newsletter, yeah. Over the next 4 years, Mr Acting President, the Labor government will launder $1.622 billion of royalties for regions money, largely through the Water Corporation, and at the same time collect a dividend. They are laundering royalties for regions money in Western Australia, whilst telling regional people that they can't afford to do what they need and the services that they need in their communities. Unless, of course, you live in a Labor electorate or an electorate that they want to win. Now, this $1.6 billion is obviously $400 million a year, but it gets worse. In the final year of the out years, it actually peaks at $480 million, Mr Acting President. Half of royalties for regions in the last out year of the budget, half of it is gone in money laundering. Half of it. So when they stand up and say, this minister is the best minister for regional development, we have retained our commitment to make royalties for regions better and stronger, it is a straight out lie. It can't be described as anything other. Why won't the Minister for Education visit Mora? I wonder if she'll turn up for the ribbon cutting ceremony. It might be the only occasion that she will visit. I'm happy to report, members, that the Mora Residential College went from 29 students last year to 37. And I reckon that once that college reopens later this year, I reckon before long we'll have an issue with having to expand that residential college. And I hope that is a problem that we encounter in the near future. Just keep in mind, it was the Labor Party who intended to close, and in fact defended the closure of that college, not to mention the 1,447 people every year in Geraldton that now can't access the Sobering Up Centre.